What kind of
Let's go.
Don't fall asleep.
Hello, welcome to Horror Cult Trash Over, the show that discusses all of the masterpieces and trashterpieces of genre cinema. I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And we are back with another Nightmare on Elm Street film.
5 weeks at Freddy's, do we call it?
Yeah, 5 weeks at Freddy's. It continues. And we've discussed some of the franchise's highs by this point with 3 and 4. And of course, we discussed 1, 2, and sadly the remake a while ago. We've come to a weird place in the franchise with today's episode. A weird place because it's hard to explain this film. This is a very strange film, and not strange in a fun way.
Yes, it takes a turn.
It does.
It does take a turn, and a downward turn. Let's be honest.
Yeah, we are of course talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child from 1989, or as it's known in Germany, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Trauma.
Oh, trauma.
And in France, Freddy 5, The Nightmare Child.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, makes sense.
Why Freddy 5?
The Trauma.
Yeah. No, what? Yeah. Why call it Freddy, though? The film's just called Freddy.
Yeah, in France, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's, this is a point in the franchise where they're just being churned out, like, year after year.
Yes.
And it's a miracle that the storyline in this franchise managed to be as consistent as it is. Because everything else, like, there's a one steady storyline going through all these films. When one character goes, it starts with another one, and it remains consistent. But then everything else in this film and the choices where they go with this story is bizarre.
Yeah, I think, like you said, this is linked to the previous film with the character of Alice. So there is a consistency to it. It's actually probably one of my biggest issues with the film is that it's Alice.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel like Alice.
It doesn't.
It feels like a film written for another character, and I'm like, we'll shove Alice into it. We'll get Lisa Wilcox back.
Yeah.
And that is a big bugbear for me, because the foundations of a decent film are there. But for me, it doesn't work because of that. And you talk about the other franchises. So 1988 was the first year that your sort of 3 big main franchises had a film out in the same year.
Yeah.
Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 also had a film out in 1989.
That they did.
Which is so indicative of the horror franchise churning it out, getting it out there as quickly as possible.
Are you aware of which films were released that year?
I certainly am. Not a good year at all.
No.
For horror. I'm sure there's other films that are fabulous, but for the main franchises, those 3, are you going to tell me which? Are you going to explain which ones?
We have 3 of the worst films of all 3 franchises.
Absolutely.
We have Jason Takes Manhattan, which is the worst Friday the 13th film.
Absolutely.
Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, easily within the top 3 worst Halloween films.
Absolutely.
And this, which is the 3rd worst Nightmare on Elm Street film.
3rd? Oh, you including the remake. Yeah. This, yeah. Yeah, well, once we get to the end of our 5 weeks at Freddy's, I'm sure we'll give our rankings. But this is certainly, it's not good. It's not good, ladies. It's not good.
This is directed by Stephen Hopkins, who did Predator 2, which I really like Predator 2.
It was decent. Sequel. Yeah, it was decent.
Lost in Space, Race, The Reaping, The Life and Death of Peter Sellers, Under Suspicion, Judgment Night, Tube Tales, and more. He was given just 4 weeks to shoot and a further 4 weeks to edit the film. This meant he had to shoot on one stage while the crew dressed the other, so they could shoot almost continually. After he made it, the studio was so impressed that he was given the task of directing Predator 2. Yeah, they got to the point where when they were doing this film, they were building sets and they had to like shush them at times because they were filming at the same time.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be at that point. Like that is Russian. That is really Russian. I mean, I know we're in a better place now. You know, we've got better resources and such. The film industry's come a long way, but you know, when you look at it, compared to Scream, we've had 2 Scream films now the last 2 years, and they've been 2 of the best films in the franchise, and really well made, really well thought out, and it kept going. The problem here is I really don't think they had any idea what they were going for. So, I mean, and I know for a fact they didn't, because they made the poster and the tagline before they even had a script.
Yeah, and the film business has always been quite cutthroat, really, in the idea of you never knew if you're going to get another film.
Yeah.
It's only because Dream Master did so well at the box office that you have Dream Child. And like, oh shit, well, what do? We didn't have a plan for 5 films. Wes Craven in 1984 did not have a plan for 5 films. So you pull shit out of anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's a critique that I had for Dream Master. But it kind of worked with Dream Master and it doesn't with this one. Is that because they have no idea where they're going or where they want to go, they throw everything against the wall and hope that it sticks. Yeah. And it doesn't become a mess. Spoiler alert for this episode, it becomes a mess.
Yeah. Written by John Skipp, who did Tales of Halloween, Class of 99, Animals, and an episode of Creepshow. Craig Spector, who did Volcano, Fire on the Mountain, and Animals. And Leslie Boehm, who did Taken, the Alien TV series, not the Liam Neeson film. Dante's Peak, The Darkest Hour, Daylight, Tracers, The Alamo, Nowhere to Run, Kid, House Free, The Horror Story, and more. This is very similar tonally to House Free, The Horror Story, the horror show, should I say? Yeah. No, I could definitely see there's similarities. The early teaser trailers credited Leslie Boehm and William Wisher for the story, and David J. Scull and Michael DeLuca for the screenplay. The Writers Guild of America denied the latter 3 writers any credit on the film, and instead credited Boehm alone for the screenplay, also giving him co-story credit with John Skipp and Craig Spector. Virtually nothing of the screenplay by Skipp and Spector made it into the film. According to Skipp, the "It's a Boy" line is the only thing that was kept in, while only around half of Boehm's screenplay was kept. Wisher and Scull did further rewrites, and the final screenplay was put together just a few days before shooting by DeLuca.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe that. Mess. It's a mess.
Yeah.
And it's a tale that comes up so many times, particularly in horror films, but in films in general.
Yeah.
These too many cooks.
Yeah.
Spoil the broth. Too many people have too many ideas. One person decides to cherry pick those ideas, or they run out of ideas and they have to pull something out of their ass, and it doesn't work. Sometimes it does, and that's what we call trash to pieces. Yeah. Where it ends up working, despite it definitely should not work. Yeah. But we end up entertained. But half the time it leads to mess.
It does. Based on characters by Wes Craven, of course, and Stephen King and comic book writer Frank Miller were offered the job of writing and directing this film.
Was this not the one that Peter Jackson was up for?
That's not. That is the next one.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Yes. Oh, wow.
Budget $6 million, and at the box office, it still made $22.1 million, even if it was the lowest grossing film of the franchise.
Yeah, still big money maker
Yeah.
for New Line Cinema. Still, I'm assuming it got some terrible reviews.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
at the
no.
time.
People hated this so much, which led to Freddy being killed off in Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, which ironically would be even more hated than this film.
Yeah. I'm just going back a little bit for what we were talking about. The year 1989 in horror. My favorite horror films from 1989, none of them are American. Tetsuo the Iron Man, Santa Sangre, Sweet Home, and Game Over. So they're my favourites. And then you got Society, which was a good film, Intruder. But it's also the year of Silent Night, Deadly Night 3.
Jesus.
Yeah. House 3.
Mm-hmm.
Puppet Master, which
Puppet Master,
which I hated. I hate that film. I'm sure lots of people love it. I hated that film. Sleepaway Camp 3. Prom Night 3.
Okay, I need you to leave Sleepaway Camp and Prom Night 3 alone.
I mean, but they're not the best films,
No.
are they? If we're taking that as a snapshot of horror in the year 1989, then it's on life support. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we also had Elves. Are you not going to mention that?
I'm not going to mention Elves, no.
Or Hellgate.
Would you like me to mention Hellgate?
But we had Unmasked Part 2. Unmasked Part 2 was great.
Yeah.
Really good.
Which was British.
It was British, yeah.
When you're looking at the Hollywood American
Nightmare Beach
sister,
is British. It was Italian, yeah.
Italian,
yeah.
You know, they were doing what they were doing, but in America, I mean, Wicked Stepmother is on this list for some reason as horror.
Well, at least we got My Mother's a Werewolf.
My Mother's a Werewolf, yes.
All the death sequences in Nightmare on Elm Street 5 were cut down significantly in order to avoid an X rating. Now, you will recall we discussed the New Blood just the other day, the Friday the 13th, Part 7, and that was butchered by the MPAA, and this one wasn't far off it. So Dan's original motorcycle death was longer, and it contained much more gore. Many sequences showing Dan's face racked in pain were cut, along with his screams and Freddy's laughter. Scenes which are seen on screen for only a few seconds are several minutes long on film. The entire sequence is much longer, and the timing of Freddy's quips are different, which makes sense because it kind of just sounds like Freddy's a soundboard in this film. And they just keep pressing him, and he just comes out with random things. Greta's dinner scene was also edited. Originally, Freddy he filleted the Greta doll with the claw glove, causing it to spurt blood everywhere. And then force-fed her own stomach. Shots of the guests laughing were cut. Also, after Freddy said, "You are what you eat," she looked down and realised he had gutted her and was feeding her mush from her own stomach. This explains why the Greta doll in Mark's dream is bleeding from its torso.
Yeah, and it also means what Freddy says, "You are what you eat."
Yeah.
Actually makes sense.
Yeah. Finally, Mark's demise is also cut as Freddy shreds the paper in the unrated release. His face is animated and shows him screaming along to his cries of pain until Freddy cuts his paper head off. All three scenes can be viewed unedited in the original unrated VHS release.
Why would Mark's death, which is cartoon, be cut like that?
I know.
It's actually quite a silly death scene. And if anyone hasn't watched the film and you're wondering, that's only 3 deaths. Yes, this slasher film only has 3 death scenes.
Yes. In 1989 as well.
In 1989. I can hear the yawns already.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Do you have any history with this one, or?
No, I watched them in order. So I bought the box set and watched them in order, and I don't remember hating this. I remember the scene with Dan's death being quite shocking
Yeah.
and quite memorable. I don't remember hating it, but I don't remember loving it either. I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
that happened.
I remember being really surprised by this one with the tonal change from 4, because this one just, at the time I couldn't put my finger on what it was and what I didn't. I enjoyed it, but there's something that just felt off, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. Now I can tell you it's definitely the lack of camp. But like the way it started with the sex scene and then the whole inmate thing, it's like, what the fuck is this? And yeah, I watched all these films back to back at the Prince Charles Cinema for an all-nighter, and that time that I watched it is the most I've ever hated this film. I dropped my rating right down dramatically, and fuck it, it was a chore. And it was a long night of films, and they're all back to back, but oh my god, I really just did not like it at all. But then we rewatched it again after that, and I enjoyed it again. But now I'm watching it today, and it's kind of like not so much. So it's kind of like I never have the same opinion twice with this film.
Yeah,
it always changes every time I watch it.
I suppose what we're doing here is going through the franchise. So we are doing direct comparisons to each year. So when I was watching the film this time, even though I was well aware of it, I was actively comparing it to what we'd seen previously. Actively comparing it to Dream Master. If you watch it in order, back to back, you're going to do that. You're going to compare. And compared to the rest of the series, this is a low.
Yeah, but also this is the end of the Dream trilogy.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to not compare it to those two films, considering Dream Warriors and Dream Master are both the height of camp, and then this just really takes itself seriously.
At certain points, but then other points it's going for the over-the-topness. It's weird. Tonally, it's weird.
Should we talk about who's in it?
Yes, in a section we like to call, Hey, I Know You.
Lisa Wilcox returns as Alice Johnson. Stephen Hopkins was keen for Wilcox to return, feeling that her story from the previous film remained incomplete. Whilst she received top billing in the opening credits, her name was accidentally deleted from the end credits.
Oh dear. Shit. Yeah, good old Lisa Wilcox.
Yeah, star of course, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Star Trek The Next Generation, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, TV series, Murder, She Wrote, Boy Meets World, Men Seeking Women, MILF Manor, and more. I think Lisa Wilcox is so much better in this film than she was in Part 4. There was something, I love 4, but her performance wasn't amazing. But I feel like she's actually really trying this time around.
I think she's let down by the material.
Yeah.
I think that is a problem.
Yeah.
And also, it just feels like a completely different character.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like Lisa Wilcox is playing Alice, the Alice that we knew from the... we spent the whole of the previous film with.
Yeah.
It was like a completely different character.
Yeah.
And from the get-go as well, and we'll get into that. But, yeah, the performance is great, but it's not Alice.
Yeah. Of course, as you know from all these episodes, the star of the entire franchise bar the remake, the recent star of Stranger Things, the star of Urban Legend, The Mangler, Hatchet, Jack Brock's Monster Slayer, just so many random films. It's Robert Englund, this time as Freddy Krueger, asylum inmate, Freddy's biological father,
Ooh.
in the asylum without makeup, and waiter without makeup.
Ooh.
So he's still getting around, doing as much as he can.
Yes.
Full pop culture icon by this point.
And he still is the best thing about these films.
He is. Even if his dialogue is really weirdly placed. It's so strange the way he comes out of all his quips in this one.
I think it's because of the cuts, though.
Yeah.
I do think that is an issue.
Kelly Jo Minter plays Yvonne Miller.
Queen.
She is the star of Summer School, The People Under the Stairs, The Lost Boys, Miracle Mile, Popcorn, Mask, The Rich Man's Wife, The Face, New Jack City, House Party, and more.
Yeah. Look at that filmography.
Yeah. Stephen Hopkins cast her as she, in his words, rocked. She was a real firebrand. Mentor enjoyed acting in the film, but found her diving scenes near the end very challenging because she was suffering from food poisoning at the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't
Poor
want
girl.
that. You don't want that as you're diving,
No,
do you?
no.
It'll follow you down.
Erica Anderson plays Greta Gibson, and she was in Twin Peaks, Zanderley, October 22, Silk Stalkings, of course.
Yeah.
Ballad of the Nightingale, Object of Obsession, Red Shoe Diaries, Club VR, and more. So she was in a few erotic thrillers.
Yes. She also came first in a Kelly Ben Simone lookalike contest.
When are we going to watch Silk Stalkings? Because
We need to watch Silk Stalk. It's a TV series, but I don't know what it's about. What's it about?
I mean, look at the name, look at the poster.
Oh, I'm going to watch Murder, She Wrote. Everyone was in bloody Murder, She Wrote.
Well, let's prioritise Silk Stalkings.
Silk Stalkings, okay.
Danny Hassel is back as Dan Jordan, that Major League hunk.
Hey.
And, of course, star of Murder, She Wrote, The New Gidget, Houston Knights, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Simon and Simon, Guts and Glory, The Rise and Fall of Oliver North, Murder, A Self-Portrait, and more. And he felt really lucky that the producers remembered him enough to ask him back for this one. So, okay, of course they remembered you. The girls and gays were begging for you to come back.
It's true. And, yeah, he came back and didn't really do much, did he? Really?
He
To be
didn't.
fair.
He didn't. But it got him his Murder, She Wrote role. So.
At least he won't recast. So Silk Stalkings, just a little
Fuck's
tangent,
sake.
just a little tangent for you. Is a series that portrays the daily lives of two detectives who solve sexually based crimes of passion, Silk Stalkings, among the ultra-rich of Palm Beach, Florida.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sounds about right, actually. Sounds like
Yeah.
our kind of thing. Yeah?
Yep. Finally,
We'll let you know how it goes.
Whit Hartford plays Jacob Johnson, and he actually went on to some decent things.
Ooh.
Jurassic Park,
Nice.
Poltergeist 2, The
Who
Other
was he in
Side,
Jurassic Park?
the random kid that talks to Sam Neill at the
Oh,
start.
of course. Yes.
Poltergeist 2, The Other Side, Batman the Animated Series, The Perfect 46, The Caper Kind, The Addams Family, and more.
Yeah. He's got a distinct look, which I think helped.
Yeah.
I don't know if it helped him as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think as
Yeah,
a
we're
child...
not to big things in the 90s.
Do you
I
understand
don't
the
know if
kid?
he- yeah.
You know what I'm getting
I don't know
at.
if he was more than a child actor.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
find that a lot of child actors during that period had very distinct looks,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't really help them as they grew
No.
older.
No.
Like Macaulay Culkin, you know, he
Yeah.
had, that child actor look of him. I don't know how to pinpoint what
I know what you mean.
but
I
you know
know
what
what
I
you
mean.
Okay, let's talk about our feature presentation.
When it comes to terror, Freddy knows best. Now, Freddy delivers.
It's a boy!
I don't know how, but now he's back.
His greatest masterpiece.
Better not dream and drive.
A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child.
The party's just starting.
Rated R. Starts Friday, August 11th at theaters everywhere.
So, in June 1989, a year after the previous film, Alice Johnson and that Major League hunk Dan Jordan have started dating. And there are no signs of Freddy Krueger. So to celebrate this, the opening credits is intertwined with the two of them having sex. Channel 5 erotic thriller style. Blue lighting, slow motion,
very close,
sweaty.
moist.
And the film decides to give the gays and girls what they asked for. Dan's ass. But it's not him.
Is that a pun? But
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not him. It's a double.
It is, in fact, Michael Bailey Smith, the same actor who goes on to play Super Freddy later on in the film.
Yeah, if we saw his butt cheek, I didn't notice.
No?
Did you know? I was confused. I didn't know what body part I was looking at any given time.
I watched this film a lot of times. I knew exactly what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Well, I was taking
Is this where the VHS got a little fuzzy?
Well, yeah. There is some arse grabbing in this, and I'm surprised you didn't notice. You love spotting a good arse grab.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you do.
Friday the 13th, that's it.
Well, you knew what I was talking about immediately.
Grab in a film.
Silent Night, Deadly Night. Filthy
Oh,
Devils.
Yeah, of course.
There's a few. I can't think of them all right now, but there's a few. Whilst taking a shower after having sex, something that all the boys wanted to see, but again, it's not her. It's a nude body double served as a stand-in for Lisa Wilcox, and that's not her.
So what you get it Angie Dickinson style.
Oh my god, this looks nothing like Lisa Wilcox.
Nothing. So you get like what is essentially a full frontal.
Yeah,
but it's behind the glass of the shower. Yeah. So it's very obviously not Lisa Wilcox. Yeah. And it feels really cheap.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I'm going to show some TNA.
But also because that isn't what this franchise is.
No.
Like, there's the few scenes here and there, like your Joey and the nurse scene and the waterbed, but those were used in the dream for certain reasons. This just felt really unnecessary.
Yeah, because essentially what happens is the shower door won't open and the water starts spurting out from the drain and from the shower head and all that business, and it starts to fill, and Alice starts drowning in it, which is really cool effect, looks great, kind of played off of not an actual fear of people, but it's understandable. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Really cool. So they could have done that and not had us see everything through the glass.
Yeah.
So it feels cheap. It's distracting from the scene itself.
Yeah.
You know, perfect example, Janet Leigh in Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see anything apart from parts of her body.
Yeah.
You don't see the TNA of it.
No.
So it's not distracting.
But this is the thing, though. I mean, they're on a tight schedule enough as it is. You know, you're in a rush here, guys. You could have saved yourself the effort of casting a body double. You could have just not showed anything. You know? Really. It just feels cheap. And like Gary said, Nightmare on Elm Street wasn't known for that. Friday the 13th, yes, of course. Very well known. Yeah.
For that TNA. But not in this case. It wasn't necessary. And it's Alice.
Yeah.
This is, you know, a character that we knew throughout the whole of Dream Master as shy and greasy haired, wouldn't say boo to a goose.
I suppose.
And now we're seeing her get laid.
Yeah.
And giving us, you know, full frontal in the shower.
I suppose if you're clued up on the rules of slasher films, it kind of means she's not safe. It's kind of immediately like, okay, shit, this is your main girl from part 4. We've made a habit of killing off main girls in this franchise. She's having sex. You know what that means for a character in a slasher film? It's a death sentence.
Yeah, which would be cool if this was a meta film, but it's not.
I mean, it's probably one of the 1,000 tones that it's got going on.
Yeah, probably.
She's transported into the dream world and has a vision of herself dressed in a nun's habit. She's back in the habit with a name tag saying Amanda Kruger, and she's in a strange asylum.
To help us out. Just in case.
Just in case we forgot her name.
You know
she wasn't in the last one.
Well, the problem is part 4 completely ignored Amanda Kruger, so we have to be reminded that she was a character that existed.
She's attacked by patients.
Sorry.
She's attacked by patients at the hospital, and it's a really grubby scene because obviously we know where it's going. We know the backstory. and just having her surrounded by all these men. You know, it doesn't show any sexual assault, thankfully, but you know where it's going, and yeah, it's rough. Again, jarring compared to where we were with the last film. But yeah, she wakes up, and something that when I first watched this scared the shit out of me is one of the patients, the one played by Robert Englund, is in bed next to her and pins her down. But again, she wakes up and he's gone. But the jump scare is fucking... When I first watched it, it was so effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really got me. The next day, Alice is graduating from high school alongside her new friends, Greta Gibson, an aspiring but reluctant supermodel. Mark Gray, a comic book fan, played by Joe Seeley, who originally wanted this character to be a goth, wanting jet black hair and wearing bone shirts. He's upset that he had to wear more colourful clothes with blonde hair. Not that it makes a single bit of difference, because his performance is, without a doubt, the worst one in the fucking film.
Yeah, the struggle's real.
Yeah. And of course, Yvonne Miller, a hospital volunteer and swimmer. And for a big chunk of this film, unfortunately, grade A bitch.
Yes.
Like, it's strange to see her take the role of the parents in the other films. That's true.
That is true. But it's for the right reasons.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty much all the character development they get, though.
Yeah.
Greta, an aspiring but reluctant supermodel.
Yeah, this sequence was actually cut down a lot to speed up the pacing of the film. Didn't work. As a result, there were a lot of continuity errors. Like, amongst the cut footage was Dan's graduation speech, dialogue between Greta and Racine. Again, who's Racine?
Who?
A rap between Yvonne, Alice, and Greta. I'd have loved to have seen that. Additional dialogue about parents and future plans, and a scene in which Alice's father gives her a camera she'd been saving up for as a graduation present before she went to Paris. And if you watch closely, you can see Alice hand her father the camera before they go to take the group picture. Now, the MPAA didn't make you cut that down. I would have loved a rap between our three girls here.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. We do get in this scene as well Greta's mother.
Icon.
Yeah, she is.
Mark's flirting with her, isn't he? He's flirting with Greta. He shoves a lollipop in her face and tries to get her to lick it. And you have the dialogue.
Greta, that's not what a cover girl puts in her body. But this is how she talks for the whole of the film.
She's absolutely the underlay of this film.
She is the underlay. She is the mother who is rich mother who is neglectful of her daughter and her daughter's true wishes.
Well, this is very much the thing. At this point in the franchise, you know, it's seemingly forgetting its own lore here. I mean, I get it. Freddy wants revenge on Alice for sending him back, killing him. Great. But the whole idea of the first four films is kids suffering for their parents' doings.
Yes.
For burning Freddy Krueger alive. I'm pretty certain Greta's mum didn't burn Freddy Krueger alive. I'm certain Yvonne's parents didn't do it, or Mark's parents. These are just random kids that end up getting killed because they happen to know Alice.
Yeah, and this is a big problem for me. The biggest problem is the fact that I do not care about any of these characters.
No.
I don't. Dan wasn't really that much of a big deal in Dream Master.
No.
Really. He was asleep or knocked out for half of it. Alice doesn't feel like the same character. And then these three, wherever the hell they've come from, they're graduated. So they've just graduated. Where were they in part 4?
Exactly.
There's no real mention from them of anyone who died in part 4. So by all accounts, they've only been friends with Alice and Dan.
Yeah.
Well, Alice at least for a year. At most.
Yeah.
Because they didn't feature at all in Dream Master.
No.
So it's like, who are these characters?
And if you're gonna get fodder for the killer.
Yeah.
Like in Friday the 13th Part 7.
Mm.
At least get a few of them, not just 3.
This is the thing, because it's not spending enough time developing in them anyway.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, one of them survives.
Yeah.
Yvonne lives till the end,
Yeah.
which I'm living for, but also means we only get 3 kills in a slasher film.
Yeah.
With not much else going for it.
It's true.
Which equals, in my estimation, getting my calculator out, equals boring.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Alice confides her nightmare to Dan, who tells her she's in control of her dreams.
Oh, nice one, Dan.
And then she walks off and starts bitching about her dad to herself, where she bumps into him. And speaking of characters who don't feel like they're the same character from the previous film, we're given some exposition that he's no longer an alcoholic.
Yes.
He just doesn't feel like it anymore. Yeah.
That was pretty good. That was good. That was good running Blakely. Well done.
On her way to work, Alice bumps into the Jump Rope Girls, who still don't have a second single, but one of them does get a solo, and she decides to change the lyrics to 7-8, Better Stay Awake, and 9-10, He's Back Again.
Wow, remix. Poor Alice. Still having to fucking work at the Crave Inn.
I know, she's still, well, I mean, she said in the last one, you're going to be there till you die, and seemingly she was right.
Even on a graduation day.
Yeah.
You think she'd be able to get the day off?
Now, this here.
Yes.
Is this fixing a bugbear that you had with the Dream Master, or am I giving the film more credit than it deserves?
You're giving the film more credit than it deserves.
Do you think this is her daydreaming?
No.
No. Okay.
No, it's explained. I'll tell you. This is a huge bugbear for me with the film.
I know there's a line of dialogue coming up that says that he's dreamt himself alive.
Yes. The idea is that at the very moment of conception, this child has been dreaming.
Of course, yeah.
And it's not her daydreaming, it's the child that's dreaming.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the time works in this film, but seemingly this baby that only got conceived on graduation day develops at an incredible speed, but no one cares to mention that. But yeah, seemingly the moment that this baby was conceived, and I'm not an expert, I don't pretend to be one, but I don't think this is the case. This baby is dreaming and sleeping and such, and therefore bringing Freddy Krueger back within the baby's dreams.
There we go.
Which is a really interesting concept, but not for Alice.
No.
Not for Alice.
Alice finds herself back at the Tim Burton-looking asylum, where she sees Amanda giving birth to a gruesomely deformed baby, and the doctor's like, holy shit, what is it?
Yeah.
Amanda tries to collect the baby before it escapes, but it sneaks out of the operating room. She follows the baby into the church where she defeated Freddy in the previous film. It finds Freddy's remains and quickly grows into an adult, this time with a freakishly large hand and freakishly large feet. And, hinting to Alice that he has found the key to coming back.
I feel like they were going for the elongated arms from the first film. It didn't quite look right.
It didn't.
I mean, it didn't quite look right in the first film.
No.
But you think over the last, 5 years... This is what's incredible about these films. It's been 5 years.
Yeah.
It feels like so much longer,
Mm-hmm.
but it really is only 5 years.
Yeah.
Which in the grand scheme of things isn't that long
Uh-huh.
to have all these films churned out.
Yeah.
But in terms of sitting and watching, it feels like the story of Freddy has come such a long way.
Uh-huh.
When in the real world, Robert Englund's only been playing him 4 or 5 years. It's incredible to think of how time works like that.
Executive producer Sarah Risher's original pitch to New Line Cinema for Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was for Freddy to have a baby. She states, I went in, one of the executives was pregnant at the time, and I said, picture Freddy clawing his way out of the womb. No one liked the idea, so then when she got a call for Nightmare 5, and they brought up the idea again, they used it.
But it never sleeps again. It's one of the original writers that tells that story. But Sarah Risher still says that the whole idea of pregnancy and bringing that into it was her idea.
A man trying to take credit for a woman's idea.
Yeah, it becomes a little muddled.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take credit for it, to be fair.
No.
If this is the result.
Well, when he comes back to life, he says, it's a boy!
Yes. Which is slightly iconic.
I think it's very iconic. I love the cinematography in this scene.
Yeah.
This film looks great. This film looks so good.
I just feel
the soundtrack is fucking banging.
The score.
Yeah, the score is.
The soundtrack is. It's not as good as Dream Master.
No, but the score is.
Even though it's got Sam Fox there, it's not as good.
The score is fantastic.
Yeah, I feel with this scene though, I feel like too much is going on. There's too much of the stunt work, the church crashing, the slow motion. I just feel like it's muddled.
I also don't get why Freddy falls over when he comes back to life. Whoa!
It's because they wanted a slow motion action sequence, and I don't feel like it works.
Yeah. In
this context, I love the way that the church looks.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the visual points are very, like you said, Tim Burton-esque.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice was the year before.
Yes.
I feel like maybe
Batman was the same year.
The same year, but I feel that was definitely an influence.
Well, I'll tell you what does work is when it randomly turns into a Bonnie Tyler music video. And Amanda Kruger shows up, again, she's given a nun-serving cunt, and she's like, your birth was a curse on all of humanity. Like, no one asked for this. And she just shows up, and it's like...
She looks different to Dream Warriors.
It's like, I hope the cunty Amanda Kruger's not there. Oh, wait. I will not allow it to happen again. You brought me back to give you life, but now I must take yours. And Freddy Krueger's like, we'll see, bitch. We'll just see. And then she says, I must be released from my earthly prison. Look for me in the tower. This is the only moment of camp in the film, and living for it. The backlighting, the doves, like, come on. That is the energy we need for the whole film. If you're going to go full fucking power ballad music video or heavy metal music video, fucking do it. Don't just keep it to this one scene. Because that's what this entire church scene is.
Yeah.
It's the fine line between a power ballad music video and a heavy metal music video in the 80s.
And, spoiler alert, the key to resolving the issues is to find her in the tower.
Yeah.
But they don't do it for a very long time. And Alice doesn't mention it at all until the very end of the film.
She does have some distractions coming up, though. I'll give her that.
Well, kind of, but it's kind of important to remember.
It is very important, yeah. She contacts Dan and informs him that she dreamt while she was awake, and that she thinks Freddy dreamt himself up. Dan then gets in his car and has a nap as he's driving on his way to see her. He's got the radio on. He's listening to SK, The Sound of Springwood. And his mum calls up and says, I'm calling about my wayward ex-son, Daniel, who's been acting like an ungrateful, unmanageable dickweed ever since he was seduced by that bimbo slut whore Alice. And Freddy's like, if I were you, lady, I'd kill the ungrateful piggy. And then
That's camp.
That is camp. Freddy's there in the passenger seat drinking champagne, spitting acid.
Well, he melts off his arm with the champagne before using his arm as a seatbelt and causing Dan to crash and fly out of the windscreen.
And, we're getting the quotes flowing around as well from him.
Yeah, they're all like car-based quotes, aren't they? Can we just go back slightly? Yeah. Can we talk about Alice getting told off for being 4 hours late to work? perfect chance for a death scene for her.
Yeah.
Whoever that was.
Uh-huh.
But also, what was Dan wearing at the pool party?
Jeans and no shirt.
Jeans and no shirt. Like, you're a pool party. Where's your swimming costume? So weird. But yeah, it's the first time this Dan falling asleep at the wheel. I think it's the first time it feels too convenient. People randomly falling asleep. Like, in the films previous, someone falling asleep in class, I understand. People falling asleep because they forced themselves to stay awake for a prolonged period of time, I understand. But Dan doesn't think Freddy's back. Dan's been getting a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for him to fall asleep at the wheel of the vehicle if it's just for the film.
Yeah.
You know, later on, Greta randomly falls asleep during dinner.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It's very forced. They haven't really thought of ways to make people genuinely fall asleep.
Yeah.
Freddy attacks and electrocutes Dan, destroying his car, forcing him to get on a motorbike and turning him into a man-machine hybrid before veering him onto oncoming traffic. And this is when we get, this boy feels the need for speed. Hey, Danny, better not drink and drive. Dream and Drive, sorry.
Dream and Drive.
It looks like something out of Mad Max.
It does. It looks really fucking cool. If it was in another film, it would look really, really fucking rad. In this context, why?
I mean,
I don't get it.
Yeah.
It makes no... It's a really cool effect. And this is what I say when too many cooks, someone's obviously come along and said, well, I've had this idea that I was probably going to use for a different film, but it's maybe my only chance to make a film. So I'm going to put it in. And the effects team were like, yeah, it's really cool. I've never, had a chance to do something like that. It's going to look really rad. And it does. And by all accounts, the young Kurt looks even better. But this is a Freddy Krueger kill. This is a Nightmare on Elm Street. This is so jarring. It doesn't fit. Freddy Krueger kills himself. He's the one that kills. He doesn't randomly change people into big hulking, cool motorbike dudes. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's odd, but I mean, in this film, we've got to take the entertainment value where he can get it.
It's true.
Alice sees Dan's body come to life and taunts her before she faints. He says, "Hi, Alice, you want to make babies?" And seemingly, I had in my notes, this is where she gets pregnant, but then that doesn't make any sense because...
No.
She's already pregnant. That's why she's having
pregnant.
His soul goes inside it, of course.
Yes.
His soul goes inside
because Freddy's eating the souls from the baby dreaming. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think...
Alice
Did you think that's how babies are made?
Whoa. Hang on. Alice doesn't get any powers in this one. That's disappointing.
She doesn't.
She doesn't gain everyone's powers.
No.
Do you know why? Because no one's got anything about them. Like, what's she gonna do? She's gonna be like, oh, fucking hell. I'm really hungry now. I can't eat much because my mother's gonna tell me off. Like, what's she gonna get from these characters?
Very true. She also doesn't bring anyone into her dreams.
She doesn't, no. A lot of what we thought about Alice in the last one is she's gone out the window.
It's true.
Waking in the hospital, she hears the news of Dan's death and that she's pregnant with his child. And she says, "What's wrong with me?" And Yvonne's like, "Nothing. You're just a little pregnant."
Just a little pregnant. Just a little bit.
And during the night,
Which apparently she's not. Apparently she's a lot pregnant.
She's a lot pregnant.
A lot of pregnant, apparently.
During the night, she's visited by a young boy named Jacob Johnson. But the next day, Yvonne tells her that there are no children on her floor, nor is there a children's ward.
Okay. Jacob Johnson.
Yeah.
Her son.
Yeah.
Hers and Dan's son.
Mm-hmm.
Looks nothing like either of them.
Well, okay. Now that is really clutching at straws, Chris. Come on.
Why? That's
Come
nothing
on.
like
The
him.
amount of films in cinematic history where people's kids have looked nothing like them. We can let that one go. We can let it go. It's fine.
He's given him a
It's
nice
fine.
red-headed
Look,
wig.
come on. It's fine.
Like,
He's got the same hair colour as Dan. It's
a
okay.
ginger wig.
It's
would've
okay.
worked.
We can forget that one. Jesus.
I think it's perfectly reasonable to expect someone's child in a film to look like their parents.
Some of the best films of all time have kids where they don't look anything like their parents.
Give me one example, please.
Eddie Furlong in Terminator 2. There's nothing like Linda Hamilton or Michael Bean. Come on. Anyway.
That was quick. Have you been holding on to that?
No, it's just the first. It's one of my favourite. I was thinking my top 4, and that was, yeah, the only one there where I could use that example.
Top 4 what? Mother,
Films of all
son,
time. Well,
Mother, son.
even Stephanie Shu doesn't really look like Michelle Yeoh or Kiyu Kwan in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay, I get your point. Fucking hell.
Alice, there's enough to bitch about this film as it is. We don't need extras. It's all right. We don't need body double. Alice tells her friends. What?
It was a funny little quip.
It was funny.
I do apologise.
It was funny. I just didn't want you to get even more angry at
It's
this film.
okay. I've been told.
Alice tells her friends about Freddy and his
We
backstory.
all know who's the editor. Who's in charge of this podcast?
Alice tells her friends about Freddy and his backstory. Yvonne refuses to listen, but Mark and Greta are slightly less skeptical. We go to Greta's house for dinner, and the first bit of dialogue we get from her mother is like, "It's true. People are always mistaking us for sisters."
I can understand that. Not because they look like
each other. Someone else is like, Greta has the perfect body for modelling, and someone else is like, I know Eileen Ford. Do you appreciate that Eileen Ford reference?
I do enjoy an Eileen Ford reference in a film.
So that afternoon, Greta falls asleep at the dinner table.
She does, randomly, with loads of people around.
And loud people as well.
Very loud people.
She dreams of herself snapping at her mother and ranting over her controlling nature before Freddy arrives, grabs her head, brings her a plate of food and says, "Bon appetit, bitch." That is peak Freddy Krueger.
That is. This is... I feel like this is what people criticised the sequels for. It didn't... Clearly, it wasn't the beginning of it, but this, I feel, is the peak.
Yeah.
This is comedy. Freddy is the protagonist almost, sort of peak, where it's all a pun. It's all a pun. So she's a model. The idea is that she doesn't eat much. So how we're gonna kill her? We're gonna force feed her.
Yeah.
Not very PC now.
No.
Obviously. But it's the kills that are based on these puns, these aspects of the characters that we're forced
to
have because they don't have any other characters. It's like, she's a model, she's a model, she's a model, she's a model. Every scene, we're reminded she's a model. And so her fate is based upon that.
It probably is the best kill in the film.
Yeah, and then the whole Bon Appetit bitch thing, you are what you eat.
Yeah. He force feeds her own organs. We don't see that it is her organ she's eating. Before choking her in front of a laughing audience. Meanwhile, Alice opens her fridge and everything turns mouldy with stop motion before Greta, with her cheeks filled with food, reaches out for Alice before Freddy pulls her back in. And one thing I noticed this time, which I've never noticed before, there's a little note left on the fridge saying, "Die, bitch."
Oh, yeah.
In the real world, Greta falls down dead in front of her mother and their guests.
God bless her. Greta, we barely knew thee.
Yvonne and Alice visit Mark, who's grieving Greta's death, and a rift forms between them because Yvonne has just had it with this shit.
But then it's quickly resolved.
Well, fairly quickly, yeah.
Yeah, like literally within the same scene. So Mark's pissed
Oh, that rift. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm about
and then
Yvonne.
that's quickly resolved.
Yeah.
And then Yvonne, she doesn't
keeps it going
quite
for a
believe
while.
them, and then she has to go to work anyway, but she's not actually that pissed. But she is later. She's like, no, I don't believe you.
Mark falls asleep and is taken to Nancy's house, or as it's known by this point in the franchise, Freddy's house for some reason. He's nearly killed by Freddy, but Alice saves him before seeing Jacob again, who warns her that maybe having kids isn't a good idea because they're just gonna fucking whinge at you like heathers.
I like the way that she draws herself as a stick figure in the picture of Nancy's old house, in which to join him in the dream.
Yeah.
But she has to write her name above it.
Alice, age 20.
Alice. And then she's in the dream. But yeah, I don't get it. Is this one of her dream abilities? I don't get it.
No. Yeah,
Jacob... she just draws a picture and she's in there.
Yeah. Yeah, Jacob whinges for a bit and very much tells Alice that she's his mum without saying the exact words. Alice requests that Yvonne gets her an early ultrasound and discovers Freddy is using Jacob as a conduit to attack her friends even when she's awake, and has been feeding him his victims to make him like himself. Absolutely bizarre and over-the-top idea.
Yeah. Which could work.
Yeah.
It's not completely, it's a Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Completely within the realms of possibility.
And the scene that it comes with inside her womb is just absolutely so over the top.
Yeah, that's true.
Yvonne and Dan's parents still believe Alice is crazy. Mark's very much at this point, which is where some of the film's messaging, intentional or non-intentional, comes in, suggests that Alice could just get an abortion.
Yes.
And that kind of brings up the whole idea that this film is pro-choice, which is great. I feel like, I don't know how intentional this was, seemingly from the director's attitude towards it, maybe not entirely intentional, but I think this is handled oddly well, especially with the idea that if Amanda Kruger had just had an abortion, Freddy Krueger, none of this shit would have happened.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. And the idea is a completely different time. And, she was a nun. Yeah. So the choice would not have been there for her. I think that is really interesting. Maybe a little too heavy for A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, but an interesting idea nonetheless.
Yeah.
I think just Mark mentioning the possibility of Alice having an abortion automatically makes it pro-choice.
Yeah.
The fact that our character, it has been given that, because they could have just not have had it ever mentioned. And just be like, yeah, we're just having the baby, we don't need to mention this. The fact that it does exist, that idea that she could have an abortion, and she has made the choice not to, I think is a very interesting one. Is it deliberate because the film is, a big message on a woman's right to choose? I don't think so. I don't.
No.
It could have been if it hadn't been so messy, but I appreciate that it's there.
Yeah.
That it exists.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Dan's parents insist that Alice gives them the baby when it's born, which Alice refuses. And this scene feels like it's straight out of a made-for-TV teen pregnancy film.
Absolutely.
Like, the camera angles and everything, it really feels like it. It's so strange.
I have an issue with Alice's doctor.
Okay.
Why is he calling Dan's parents?
Yeah, that's not very professional.
That is highly unprofessional.
Like, if he thought there was an issue and she wasn't safe enough to be a mother, then call social services, not
absolutely, or
Dan's
her
parents.
father.
Yeah.
Because they say, apparently Alice's doctor called them and told them that Alice was acting delusional during the ultrasound.
Yeah.
highly unethical.
Uh-huh.
Highly. Why would they not call her father?
Yeah.
When did she even say that Dan was the father?
I know, yeah.
They're not married. I always thought, when I first watched the film, I always thought they got married. And then I feel like I forgot that they had a graduation ceremony and that it happened many years later. Like, Dan and Alice had gotten married. And I think because Alice feels like such a different character.
Yeah.
And you have her kind of sexualized at the beginning. I feel like she was meant to be much older than she was.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like it's implied that they live together as well.
Yeah.
Which is really strange.
Yeah.
Well, Alice and Mark research Freddy and the nun Amanda. Realizing Amanda was trying to stop Freddy, they investigate her whereabouts, and Alice goes to sleep, hoping to find Amanda at the asylum. Whilst there, Freddy lures her away.
She's at the fucking tower.
Yeah.
She told you earlier. She's at the tower. Go find her.
Well, Freddy lures her away by threatening Yvonne, who has fallen asleep in a jacuzzi. Why are you asleep in a jacuzzi, Yvonne?
She has more of an excuse because she is working all the hours as a nurse.
Yeah.
So she does work late nights.
She has got food poisoning.
She has got food poisoning too, which isn't good for a jacuzzi.
No.
The colour looks clear, so it's fine. We're all right. She's taking her Imodium, and but she also, she's got diving and all that business.
Yeah,
she's a multifaceted woman. She really is. She's got a finger in every pie. This Yvonne, I'm living for her, I have to say.
Alice rescues Yvonne by shoving a big pole into Freddy's mouth. The scene that is featured amongst many others at the start of Freddy vs. Jason. Yvonne finally believes her.
I do like, just talking about this scene, I like the visual of her diving into a puddle.
Uh-huh.
That's about it. And then when she's up on the diving board, this is very Beetlejuice.
It is.
Those claws going towards her, above her. So very Beetlejuice.
Mark falls asleep.
I won't say his name again.
And is pulled into a comic book world.
Hey.
Freddy taunts him with Greta's corpse, which he throws to the ground, causing it to smash to pieces as it changes to a doll. And Mark, which is very much, I feel, a riff on the Wizard Master in Dream Warriors, says, "Time to die, you Scarface limp dick," and transforms into a superhero.
Yeah, the Phantom Prowler, which is the superhero. The Phantom Prowler doesn't sound right, by the way, for a hero of a comic book.
No.
But apparently the comic book that he's been writing is the Phantom Prowler.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to describe him. He's got, like, guns and a waistcoat. Not waistcoat, trench coat and shit.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this scene, visually, really, really cool. But, it is cheesy.
It is.
The Wizard Master was cheesy.
But if the rest of the film was the same tone, this wouldn't have felt out of place.
Yeah, that's true.
Freddy turns him into a paper cutout and slashes him to pieces.
Yes, yeah, well, Super Freddy, isn't it?
Super Freddy, yes.
Yeah,
Buffs
he goes faster than a bastard maniac, more powerful than a loco madman. It's Super Freddy. And then we get the bloke from the beginning.
Uh-huh. The body double.
With Robert Englund's Freddy mask on.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got like a lightning bolt. He's meant to look like who's the superhero? I don't know. But visually, it looks great. It does look really cool. Yeah. It's giving Sin City.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently I say apparently, it's a fact. The everything was painted.
Yeah.
Black and white and grey. And looks really good. It looks genuinely really good.
Alice goes to bed to find Freddy and save her son. When she gets there, Freddy's like, "Nice try, Alice. Thanks, babe." He chases Jacob around for a bit and he's like, "Kids, always a disappointment."
Yeah, so the asylum, is that where they are?
Yeah, so that's where they are now, and realising Freddy has been hiding in her every time she fell asleep, she draws Freddy out from within herself, literally.
Yeah, which looks really good. I mean, it's a real cool visual as Alice has the Freddy face on.
Yeah.
And a wig. The Lisa Wilcox wig. And he emerges from her like a Siamese twin with them being pulled apart.
Kind of like the cops in Hellraiser 4.
Yeah. A very Society, also, which was the same year. There's a good American horror film from 1989, Society. Yeah, and the optical illusions of the stairs as well. It is based on the MC Escher art, where the stairs are going up and down and such. And it's really cool visuals. Yeah, and it's something that I can't fault about the film. Yeah, is that there are many scenes that look really cool. They do, but it's like the jigsaw pieces. The pieces look really great, but if they're not fitting together, it doesn't quite work.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yvonne finds Amanda's remains at the asylum and joins the fight in the dream world, encouraging Jacob to use the power Freddy had been given him.
So Yvonne literally goes to the tower, taps her on the shoulder. Ghost Amanda turns round and says, "Thank you." And Yvonne's like, okay. She's not like anything, but she just taps her on the shoulder and she's gone. Like, how long was she waiting there for? Yeah. How? Because she told him like ages ago. Her, you know, like, are we talking weeks? It's hard to think how much time's passed.
She's just patiently waiting there the whole time. And Jacob says, "Skulls out, Kruger," which is a replacement line when the actor was a minor at the time, so wasn't permitted to say the original line, which was "Fuck you, Kruger." Jacob destroys Freddy by launching the souls and heads of Dan, Greta, and Mark from his mouth and through Freddy's chest. And his infant form is absorbed by his mother whilst Alice picks up a baby Jacob, and that is how you give birth, kids.
Apparently.
Warning Alice away.
Don't Google it, kids.
Warning Alice away, Amanda seals Freddy away in time as his glove bursts through her stomach. And again, another really great visual.
Yeah, what it means, I've no idea.
Abortions are available, that's what it means.
Right, okay.
Several months later, Jacob Daniel Johnson is enjoying a picnic with his mother, grandfather, and Yvonne.
Now, this is baby. This isn't the version we see in the dream world.
Yeah. But nearby, some children are jumping rope and humming Freddy's rhyme, hinting at Freddy's return, which is quickly moved to the side in place of "Let's Go" by Cool Mo D over the end credits. And that is a Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child.
Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Dream Child. Do you know what that film was missing?
What?
A funeral scene.
That's true. There was no funeral scenes.
There were no funeral scenes.
Yeah.
And I think that sums it up. Because I don't feel like it's a true Nightmare on Elm Street film.
No.
I feel like it lost a lot of what made a Nightmare on Elm Street.
The next one doesn't have a funeral scene either.
No.
Very
Does Dream Worry?
Yeah.
Does
an icon's funeral?
Yeah, of course.
And
Freddy's
an icon
Revenge.
at a funeral before that. Freddy's Revenge does not.
No. The two that feel less like an actual proper Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Maybe I've hit the nail on the head.
No, the remake has a funeral scene.
Oh, okay. But yeah, no, there's some good ideas there. There really are. But it gets lost. It really gets lost. It gets muddled. And there are moments that are really fucking dull.
Yeah.
Really dull. And it became a bit of a joke. And I think this film is the one that really, do I say jump the shark?
No,
to the
I think
point where the Nightmare on Elm Street films became a joke. The whole schools out Kruger
the
thing.
franchise jumped the shark as soon as he put those sunglasses on in the last film.
Yeah,
That's when it jumped the shark, and that was fine. But here, the problem is there are some entertaining scenes in here, but when it's not entertaining, it's really fucking boring, and it can't seem to keep that consistency there. It can't. It's never one. It's always one or the other. It's never a steady flow. It's always just boring, entertaining, boring, entertaining, boring, entertaining. It's like, it's a mess.
Yeah, I think ultimately I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, this is the most boring one.
Yeah, because it could have been a lot more than it was.
Yeah.
And it had all the potential to. And I think, yeah, it's bad. No, it's bad. Fuck it, it's bad. Sorry. And it's my favourite franchise. And this is it's a low. It's a definite low.
Well, we're still going to give it some awards.
Yes.
Biggest queen. I got Alice because don't know anyone else enough to give her.
Yeah, that's very true. I kind of went with Yvonne, just for being a black woman who survived a slasher film.
I mean, yeah, that's deserved.
Especially in 1989. She was also a nurse, and she was a bit harsh, but she was just looking out for Alice.
Mm-hmm. Biggest gasp, I have the Robert Englund in bed jump scare, judging from when I first watched it.
Judging from when I first watched it, Dan's death scene.
Yeah.
He actually did kind of catch me off guard.
Best dialogue, I have Bon Appetit, bitch.
I went with, I'm calling about my wayward ex-son Daniel, who's been acting like an ungrateful, unmanageable dickweed ever since he was seduced by that bimbo slut whore Alice.
And that's camp. I have Amanda Kruger's big, grand 80s music video entrance to tell Freddy she's going to take him down, and Freddy calling her a bitch after a monologue.
Greta's mother and her shoulder pads. High camp. I was going to say Greta.
It's not quite. Ratings, I give it 5 Friends of Eileen Ford out of 10.
I gave it 3 missed opportunities for a funeral scene out of 10.
This is a tough one. Masterpiece, trash, basic, or a camp old bunch of fun. I wouldn't say it's basic. I wouldn't particularly say it's trash. It's definitely not camp. I don't know what this is. I really don't. It exists.
I would just call it disappointing.
Yeah.
I would just call it disappointing, because if this wasn't a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel, I probably would have rated it higher.
Yeah.
But for me, there was too much potential there, and too much that had goodness that had came before it, that it feels like a real failure.
Yeah.
And I think disappointed is the word I would use.
Mm-hmm. Tell us what you think to the film on social media with Horror Cult Trash over on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and Horror Cult Trash on Twitter. I'm Dead at Gaz92 on Letterboxd, Gazmo205 on Instagram, and GazCruise92 on Twitter.
I'm Chris Barker823 on Letterboxd and Instagram.
And I forgot to tell you, the film is available on DVD, Blu-ray, and video on demand. And if you enjoy this, I recommend checking out Demon Seed. No, sorry, Julie Christie carries the Demon Seed.
A great choice, Gary. If you enjoy pregnancy and childbirth based horror films, I really recommend Husira, the Bone Woman.
Yeah, good choice. And give us a rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, like a follow on everything else. We're also Gasp Horror Fest across all social media as well. Next week, it's double episode week. And we're getting closer to the end of 5 Weeks at Freddy's. It means, coming up next, we have Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare.
Jesus. Yeah. I mean, does it get worse or does it get better? It depends.
It gets more entertaining.
Yeah, it depends how you see things, to be fair. It depends how you look at things.
And on Friday, we'll be bringing you our very special Halloween original versus remake, where we'll be discussing Night of the Demons.
Nice. very looking forward to that.
We'll be back same time, same place next week.
Bye.